Hey there, Strat fans, to my review of Civilization V, a game that redefines the strategy genre by blending historical depth with engaging gameplay. Whether you're a seasoned empire builder like myself, or a newcomer eager to make your mark on history, Civ V offers a complex yet accessible experience that has captivated players since its release.
Damn!
In this review, we'll explore how its innovative mechanics, stunning art style, and immersive sound design come together to create a timeless classic. So prepare your diplomatic skills, sharpen your strategic mind, and let's dive into the world of Civilization V. Civ 5 always was a lot different than other Civilization games for me, and for someone who wasn't particularly fond of Civ 6, I could say that Civ 5 is definitely worth a try, even in 2024. To be honest, everything from the game mechanics to the art style just breathed more to me personally as a historian and a strategy buff. That's why I prefer 5 over 6, and in this review I'm going to show you just how I prefer it and how you might prefer it as well. So for those of you that don't know, Civ 5 is a turn-based strategy game, a 4X game what they call on the market, where players take on the role of a leader of a civilization. Though you are given certain leaders to pick from, and each Civ game is different with which historical figure they choose, but it really is the civilization itself that you're leading. From their buffs to their special units and all that, it's the civilization and the feel of it that you're leading. And you guide it from the dawn of man into the space age. The game is rich with complex mechanics that allow for diverse gameplay strategies. Civ 5 introduced a significant change to the series by using a hexagonal grid instead of the traditional square tiles. This shift allows for more fluid movement and a greater variety of strategic options. Each tile has a specific type of terrain, such as grassland, plains, mountains, or oceans, each providing different benefits or obstacles. For example, mountains are impassable, but they can increase the science output of adjacent cities with certain buildings, while grasslands are ideal for food production, and deserts for some reason are where everybody gets their money. Each tile is very expansive and has different strategies for where you start. So if you start with a whole bunch of desert tiles, there might be ways that you can develop that to be a very money-rich nation, but you might also struggle with growth early on because they're notorious for not having a lot of food. So where you're placed at is what really determines how you play the game. Cities are the core of your civilization. You start with one settler to establish your first city, which will become the heart of your empire. Cities produce units, buildings, and wonders, and they also generate resources like gold, science, culture, faith, the norm. Expansion is the key strategy, as more cities allow for greater resource production, but each new city increases the cost of social policies and can lead to diplomatic tensions with other civilizations. Plus, in Civ 5, the more that you have, the less happy your people are, because when there's more people, there's more crowding. So you have to be strategic with your placement of your cities so you can get the most out of them, while also make sure you don't overdo it, because cities also have certain range that they can have resources to use, and if they overlap, then some cities might not be able to generate resources here. They might lose out on getting more resources for you. So cities, in my opinion, is one of the most strategic part of Civ 5, especially when you're setting them up. There are two types of resources: strategic and luxury. Strategic resources like iron, horses, and oil are required to build certain units and buildings, while luxury items such as gold, silver, and spices boost happiness, which is crucial for maintaining a productive and stable civilization. Players can trade resources with other civilizations or city-states, creating a dynamic economic system where diplomacy and trade routes can be just as important as military might. And when it comes to luxury resources, just having one of each could be enough, because you do get a boost for having it, but having multiple allows more diplomacy because you can leverage that to prevent a war. So it's important to capitalize on as many resources as you can, as fast as you can, so that you can set it up, get them into your empire, get the happiness buff, because this is how you mitigate dealing with people unhappy from population. This is how you keep your citizens happy. While strategic resources like iron, coal, aluminum, uranium, that one, whenever you get to the later eras where you get powerful buildings that use these resources to operate, they're very crucial when you reach that step. The technology tree in Civ 5 is the backbone of your civilization's progression. Technologies are unlocked in a linear fashion, with each one enabling new units, buildings, and wonders. The tree is divided into different eras, from the ancient era to the information era. The players must decide whether to specialize in a particular path, like military science, or develop a more balanced approach. In my opinion, it's more important depending on where you start for what path you will choose in technology, but oftentimes you find yourself racing to get certain technologies. For instance, you are bordered by two warlike civilizations, and you want to be able to have the edge on them. So you're going to be gunning for gunpowder during a certain age, whereas other civilizations, if you're by yourself or there are pretty peaceful ones next to you, you might want to go for things to improve your gold output or improve food output so you can grow faster. It really just is situational. You should always try to get a little bit of each, because if you focus on one thing too much, you'll find that your empire is lacking in other ways that could lead to your defeat. A cool thing about Civ 5 is social policies. I know, doing a whole lot of social credits here.
Amazing, my social credit up by 15?
As your civilization generates culture, you unlock social policies, which provide powerful bonuses and can significantly shape your gameplay strategy. Social policies are divided into different branches, such as the tradition, liberty, honor, and rationalism. Honor is my favorite, by the way, each catering to different styles of play. Adopting policies in one branch can lead to a more focused civilization, while mixing branches can create a more versatile empire. Again, this is just very situational, but most of the time, the first ones, honor, tradition, liberty, those will be the ones that provide the biggest bonuses. Like tradition helps with happiness buffs. Liberty is pretty much the same. It helps with expansion and all that. Honor is, of course, your military. As you progress through the game, you unlock more of them, like rationalism, explorationism, all of that stuff. Diplomacy in Civ 5 is multifaceted, involving direct negotiations with other civilizations and interactions with city-states, which are minor powers that can provide various benefits. Diplomacy is governed by factors such as your civilization's strength, the type of government you've adopted, and how you treat other civilizations. Alliances, trade agreements, and declarations of friendship can lead to peaceful coexistence, while ignoring diplomatic relations can result in war. Honestly, with the AI in Civ 5, it can seem like war is inevitable, and I mean, it could be a design feature, but honestly, I've seen a lot of times peace negotiations break down as your empire gets bigger or more technologically advanced. Civ 5 overhauled combat by introducing a 1 unit per tile rule, eliminating the previous stack of doom from earlier games in the series.
Yeah, boy.
This change emphasizes strategic positioning, as players must consider terrain and unit types when planning battles. Combat units are divided to melee, range, naval, and air, each with specific strengths and weaknesses. Additionally, players can garrison units in cities for defense or embark on military campaigns to conquer enemy civilizations. The combat was a lot different than what was in previous civs, and in later civs they've pretty much stuck to this tile rule. Honestly, I like it, but it can seem a little frustrating for some when you have a unit that's better but it's blocked by another, so it can cause some problems. But honestly, I do like it, and it is, like I said, very strategic placing, because you have to make sure you have the right unit that counters one or that can do better. But on the lower difficulties, your units are always going to have a buff. On the higher difficulties, even units that are a couple tech ages above another one might have a debuff, but there's certain strategies that counter this, and different buffs, and through like traditions, social policies tree, like honor and all that can help buff up your military, and getting special upgrades for them as well can help buff them up. Like some upgrades make them do better in open terrain, some better in rough terrain, so really plan that out as you develop your military. And again, we'll do a little bit of strategic placing with the hexes, have support for your melee line, and you'll be just fine. Now, I mentioned city-states before, but they're a unique feature in Civ 5. They're small, independent entities that do not compete for victory, but can significantly influence the game. Players can interact with city-states by providing gifts, completing quests, or using military force. Gaining the favor of city-states can provide bonuses like additional resources, military units, or cultural influence, making them valuable allies in your quest for dominance. City-states, when I first played Civ 5, were a bit annoying, but once you figure out what you need to do for them, or you just pump gold into them, they're pretty easy to keep on your side, and then they become like little outposts for your units, because you can have that city-state hold off the enemy faction and then move your guys in there and use it as a staging post. But when it gets into the later game, other world leaders will be actively vying to pump more money into city-states to flip them, so be careful with that. But certain civilizations do better with city-states than others, like Venice. And of course, it wouldn't be a Civ game without the wonders. Wonders are unique, powerful buildings that provide significant advantages to the civilization that constructs them. Each wonder is tied to a specific technology and can only be built by one civilization, making them highly competitive. Wonders can boost everything from military power to cultural influence, are often a key element in achieving certain victory conditions. Wonders Wonders with all Civ games are always highly sought after and do really good bonuses. There are several ways to achieve victory in Civ 5, each requiring a different strategy. There's domination victory, where you conquer the capital cities of all the other civilizations, you know, the old school way. There's the science victory, be the first to complete the spaceship and launch it to Alpha Centauri, which is kind of like the goal for science victories for all the Civs that I've played, all the way back to Civilization Revolution. And then you have the cultural victory, which is you complete 5 social policy branches and build the Utopia project. I've never seen many people play for that, but it's an option, and it is kind of interesting to do that route. The diplomatic victory, win a majority vote in the United Nations, which requires strong friendships with city-states and other civilizations, which is very hard to maintain in this game, I will tell you, with the AI being as bloodthirsty as it is. And then the time victory, if no other victory conditions are met, the civilization with the highest score at the end of the game wins. This is just basically starving out other civilizations. If you don't want to conquer them all, if you don't want to go for culture, if you don't want to blast off into space, if you don't want to do anything, then this is the victory that comes to you. Usually that never happens. I usually end up doing like a military victory just because I get frustrated, but that's the victory conditions. Moving on to religion. Religion is a flexible system introduced in the Gods and Kings expansion. Yes, you had to buy a DLC for this one. Players can found a religion by generating faith and establishing a pantheon. Now, there are certain pantheons that are better than others. Like God King, it's kind of all around a good choice, gives you a buff for everything, whereas certain ones like the desert ones or the ones that buff mountain tiles, if you're not in those regions, they're not going to do shit for you. And this evolves into a full religion with its own beliefs as you grow it. These beliefs provide bonuses to various aspects of the game, such as combat, culture, or growth. Religions can spread to other civilizations and city-states, influencing diplomatic relations and gameplay. This is how, in theory, you would get a diplomatic victory. If your enemies, quote-unquote, have your religion, you can sway them to your side. Civ 5 also introduces espionage. This also was introduced in Gods and Kings. It allows players to deploy spies in foreign cities or city-states. Spies can perform missions such as stealing technologies, inciting revolts, or gathering intelligence on rival civilizations. Espionage adds another layer of strategy, as players must balance the benefits of covert operations against the risk of getting caught and sparking diplomatic conflicts. The AI will often try to use spies to steal from you, especially if you're technologically superior. You'll find that enemy spies will constantly be found in your cities, especially your capital, trying to steal technologies or successfully stealing them. So I honestly will just have my spy ring always set to defense. It'll be counter spying, because then you'll just catch loads of enemy spies. That's what I usually will do. But they are possible to go and steal other technologies if you're falling behind, especially in the higher difficulties. This could be a game changer for you. Civ also introduces great people, as we've always known. Great people are special units that provide significant boosts to your civilization. They are generated through various means, such as producing culture, science, or faith. Include great scientists, great artists, great merchants, and more. Each type of great person can provide unique actions like constructing powerful improvements, discovering new technologies, or creating great works of art that boost cultural influence. Great people, always been a staple of Civ, always been how it is. You also have happiness. It's a very critical factor in Civilization 5, representing the overall contentment of your citizens. It's influenced by factors like luxury resources, social policies, and city size. High happiness levels lead to a more productive civilization, while low happiness can cause cities to revolt or reduce overall efficiency. Managing happiness is crucial, especially when expanding your empire. Happiness is a game killer for a lot of us as you try to expand, especially if you try to expand outward, like wide. If you try to play wide, this is one thing you have to really worry about, just because it's so easy to piss people off when they're crumbled together with so many people. That's why seeking out luxury resources, passing policies that improve it, like traditionalism, are a big draw for wide players. And then finally, culture and tourism. Culture and tourism plays a vital role in achieving a cultural victory. Culture is generated by buildings, wonders, and great works, which can be created by great artists, writers, and musicians. Tourism, introduced in the Brave New World expansion, is used to influence other civilizations. If a civilization generates enough tourism, you can achieve cultural dominance over others, leading to a cultural victory. Cultural dominance is a big thing, and I think it's a really good way to beat other civs without fighting them. They're already doing your stuff, so I don't think it really gives a diplomatic benefit. In fact, it probably hurts your diplomatic favor with the civs, because the higher up classes aren't going to like it that much. But it's a path to victory. In Civ 5, players have the unique opportunity to craft their own narrative or story for their civilization as they guide it through various historical events and eras. From ancient times to the modern age, this storytelling aspect emerges originally through the choices players make, the challenge they face, and the interactions that they have with other civilizations. Civ 5 doesn't have a set story because you're kind of just from the dawn of time. The story begins with the selection of a civilization and its leader, each with unique traits, abilities, and historical context. For example, choosing Genghis Khan and the Mongols sets the stage for a story centered around conquest and military dominance, while selecting Gandhi in India might lead to a tale of peaceful expansion and cultural flourishing, unless, of course, the AI is playing Gandhi. We all know that. That meme will never die. The starting location, resources, and terrain also contribute to the early narrative, influencing initial strategies and growth. As the game progresses, players make strategic decisions that define the character and legacy of their civilization. These decisions include city placement and expansion. Deciding where to settle cities can shape the narrative of a sprawling empire or a tight-knit cluster of powerful city-states. Each new city contributes to the civilization's identity, whether it becomes a hub of commerce, culture, or military might. And then there's technology research. The order in which players advance through the technology tree influences the civilization's story. Prioritizing military technologies might lead to a tale of conquest and war, while focusing on science and culture can create a narrative of enlightenment and progress. This is all theoretical, because the game never really writes a story for you. As you go through the eras, it will give you like a little bit of a pause or every technology research, but it does shape your story and how your civilization achieves one of the victories. The social policies and ideologies is the next step on this. The adoption of social policies and later ideologies further tailors the story. A civilization that embraces honor and autocracy might develop a narrative of militaristic, authoritarian regimes, while ones that choose tradition and freedom might tell the story of a peaceful, prosperous republic. It's really up to your interpretation, because the game, like I said, will not narrate this stuff. It'll just carry on through the normal gameplay, and whenever you research a technology, it'll just give you a little slide. So story's not like a big thing for this game, but it has the theme of telling, through a history book. And I love that about it. It's a great way for history buffs like myself to be like, oh, great, I researched that technology, and this is a big boost for my people. It's a good way to immerse yourself in a game like this, because a 4X game is kind of hard for players to immerse themselves into it. But Civ 5 does it best out of all the civilizations, even Civ 6, because Civ 6 was a little bit more cartoony for my taste, and I just feel like Civ 5 embraces the story aspect a little bit more. I mean, if you have a big imagination like me, you can immerse yourself into it. The tone of Civ 5 is a sophisticated blend of grandeur, ambition, and thoughtful reflection, evoking the sense of guiding a civilization through the vast expanse of human history. From the moment you start the game, Civ 5 sets an epic tone. The sweeping orchestral soundtrack, the detailed world map, and the grandiose narration by William Morgan Shepherd all contribute to a sense of scale and importance. Every decision feels monumental, as you are not just playing a game but shaping the destiny of a civilization. The game captures the vastness of time, giving players a sense of being a part of something much larger than themselves. Civ 5 encourages players to think deeply about the consequences of their actions, not just in terms of gameplay mechanics, but in how they mirror real historical processes. The game's tone is one of reflection on human progress, the rise and fall of empires, and the enduring legacies of culture, technology, and ideology. The technology tree, social policies, and the various victory conditions all require careful consideration and long-term planning, fostering a tone of intellectual engagement. The game has an underlying optimism about the potential of human civilization. Whether you're advancing through the ages, constructing wonders, or exploring new technologies, there's a sense that progress is achievable and that your civilization can leave a lasting mark on the world. This aspirational tone is reflected in the pursuit of victory conditions that emphasize not just conquest, but also scientific discovery, cultural influence, and diplomatic unity. While Civilization 5 is undeniably fun and engaging, especially for me, it carries a serious tone when it comes to the weight of leadership. The game often puts players in positions that they must make difficult decisions, albeit virtually difficult decisions, such as choosing between war and peace or balancing the needs of their people with the ambitions of expansion. These choices often provoke thought about real-world leadership and governance, reinforcing the game's serious and contemplative tone. The game maintains a neutral, almost scholarly tone in its presentation of history. It doesn't glorify or vilify any particular civilization, leader, or ideology. Instead, it presents a broad canvas of possibilities, allowing players to explore different paths without imposing moral judgments. This neutrality allows players to engage with history on their own terms, experimenting with various strategies and outcomes. Now, it does help that they avoid a lot of notorious historical figures, but they do have some in there, like Genghis Khan, of course, and Attila the Hun. Civilization Civilization 5 also creates an immersive atmosphere that draws players into the game world. The visual and auditory elements such as the detailed art style, the atmospheric music, and the spoken language for diplomacy work together to envelop the player in the experience. This immersive tone makes the game feel like a living, breathing world with every decision has weight and consequence. That's pretty much what I've been telling you guys. The tone is probably the biggest upside for this installment in particular. The tone and the art style are stuff that just clicks with me. I've never been able to stop playing it when it comes to when I want to play a Civ game, because the tone and the art style for it is serious, it's grounded, and it makes you feel like you're actually leading. It does its job as a piece of entertainment by immersing you with its immersiveness. That's why I will continue to reiterate why I prefer it over Civ 6 or any other Civ, because it takes the time to immerse you and try to make you feel like you're in the shoes of a leader of history. The art style of Civ 5 is a blend of realism and stylization, designed to convey both the grandeur of the historical civilizations and the strategic clarity needed for gameplay. The visuals are meticulously crafted to balance aesthetic appeal and functionality, ensuring that the game is both beautiful to look at and easy to navigate. The world map in Civ 5 is one of the most striking elements of its art style. The game uses a top-down perspective that renders the world in a way that feels both realistic and slightly stylized. Terrain types such as forests, mountains, deserts, and oceans are rendered with detailed textures that give a sense of place, like remaining distinct enough for easy identification during gameplay. The terrain is depicted with a painterly quality, with soft edges and rich, saturated colors that make up the map visually appealing without overwhelming the player with too much detail. This balance ensures that the map is easy to read, allowing players to quickly access the landscape and make strategic decisions. Cities are represented as small, detailed models that grow and change as the game progresses. The buildings within cities are scaled to match the map's aesthetic, maintaining a stylized look that fits with the overall art direction. Improvements like farms, mines, and roads are clearly defined with clean lines and textures that make them easily distinguishable on the map, and sometimes it's very difficult to get the roads the way you want them to look, so sometimes a lot of Civ players will destruct and reconstruct roads to get them to look perfect when connecting your cities. But it is important to have them, so it's not wise to forbade them altogether by aesthetic purposes, but when they make those weird loops and crisscrosses, as a veteran Civ 5 player, I can attest that that is very annoying. Moving on, the leaders in Civilization 5 are one of the highlights of the game's art style. Each leader is portrayed with a mix of realism and artistic flair, reflecting their historical significance while giving them a unique, memorable look. That was one of my biggest gripes with Civ 6. The leaders looked very cartoonish, more like they appeared to children than actual history fans. Again, there's nothing bad with that. It was a different audience for Civ 5 compared to Civ 6, I feel, and the leaders was a big part of that. Now, their portraits are detailed and expressive, often featuring elaborate costumes and settings that reflect their cultural background and historical area. The art style emphasizes facial expressions and body language, which adds personality to each leader and enhances the diplomatic interactions in the game. I love the animated portraits of the leaders when you click on them. It really does emphasize their cultural relevance of each civilization. Even the ones that are more obscure to people who aren't as much of a history enjoyer as me, they really make them thematic and make you want to learn about these civilizations outside of the game, or to read into the codexes of each of the civilizations past, you know, their wonders that were founded by them, or the leaders themselves and the civilization themselves too. Civ 5 gives a great introduction to anyone who wants to learn more about history, and the design of each leader incorporates elements of their culture's art, architecture, and symbolism. This cultural richness adds depth to the game, making each civilization feel distinct and authentic. Wonders and buildings in Civ 5 are designed to be visually iconic, each with a unique look that reflects its historical and cultural significance. The wonders are represented by detailed models that are larger and more elaborate than regular buildings, making them stand out on the map. The art style of each wonder captures its real-world counterpart's architectural grandeur while fitting seamlessly into the game's overall visual aesthetic. The wonders, sometimes there is a glitch with them, but they won't appear, or they'll appear underwater or something, so not always does it work completely, but the wonders are still pretty good to look at, as well as the regular buildings. Units in Civ 5 are designed with a focus of clarity and historical authenticity. Each unit type, from ancient warriors to modern tanks, is rendered in a way that makes it immediately recognizable, which is crucial for strategic gameplay so that you can immediately know what it is. Plus, you got the little circle there that shows you what type of unit it is. One thing I really enjoy playing with is some of these mod packs that Civ has that can give you more ethnic looking units, as well as, you know, the special units that are just in vanilla Civ 5. They really do look really cool cool, and they capture the aesthetic of that civilization. The scale is something that I've always loved about the units. They are slightly exaggerated in size compared to the terrain to make them easily visible on the map. Despite this, the units retain a high level of detail with distinct uniforms, weapons, and equipment that reflect their historical era. Plus, there's more than like 1 or 2 models, where Civ 6 has like 5 models for a unit, or sometimes even 3. That just made it very unrealistic to me, whereas Civ 5 at least had, when it was line infantry, 2 lines of like maybe 10 guys, so it was something, you know? I did like that. The animations, very smooth, lifelike movements, adding a dynamic element to the game. Whether it's a worker building a road or a soldier marching to battle, these animations contribute to the overall immersion and enhance the experience. The UI, very clean and elegant and consistent with the game's overall art style. The interface uses a combination of stylized icons and detailed menus to convey information without cluttering the screen. Color palette in Civ 5, rich and varied, with warm tones for deserts, cool blues for oceans, and lush greens for forests. The game uses lighting effects to create a sense of depth and atmosphere, with subtle shadows and highlights that give the map a 3-dimensional feel. And as the era transitions, that's one really big thing about the game. The game progresses throughout these eras, and the lighting and color scheme subtly shift to reflect the changing times, adding to the immersion and helping players feel the passage of time. The scale of Civ 5 is vast, encompassing the entirety of human history in the entire world, both in terms of time and geography. The game allows players to experience the rise and fall of civilizations from the ancient era to the modern age, managing everything from individual cities to entire continents. Now, it spans thousands of years, so the time scaling is very important, starting in 4000 BCE, potentially reaching far into the future. The game progresses in turns, you know, like every turn-based 4K game, each turn representing a set number of years that the creases of the game advances through different eras. So like as you go through the ancient era, you get through like hundreds or thousands of years, and then as you get closer to the modern era, it's like 10 years, 5 years. You know, technology catches up and it gets crazier. It allows players to witness the full evolution of their civilization, from founding the first city to launching spacecraft into the cosmos. The eras make this very thematic with the scaling, from ancient, classical, medieval, Renaissance, industrial, modern, atomic, and information. Each era introduces the new technologies, units, buildings, and wonders, reflecting the historical progression of human civilization. The transition between eras is a significant moment in the game, often requiring players to adapt their strategies to new challenges and opportunities, and as well new resources popping up and new ways to kill your enemies, defend, and new options for victory as you get closer to the later ages. The world map is divided into hexagon tiles like every 4K game, each representing types of terrain such as mountains, forests, rivers, plains, and oceans. Now, a cool thing is you can toggle the hex map, but when you have it off, they're very subtle to where it still makes it look like actual terrain, but that's still the basis of the game, is the hexagons. They make it immersive enough to where you can pretty much ignore it, but you can turn on the hex grid if you need help finding a specific hex. I do like that option. The scale of the map is abstracted to allow for strategic depth, meaning that a single tile might represent a vast region or strategic location like a choke point or resource-rich area. And each civilization in the game can grow to include multiple cities, besides Venice. Yeah, suck at Venice. Each with its own unique development path. Players manage resources, construct buildings and wonders, train military units, and engage in diplomacy, all of which contribute to the overall success and expansion of your civilization. Cities produce resources like food, production, and gold, which are used to grow populations, build infrastructure, and support armies. Scale of production and resource management reflects the complexity and depth of running a large empire. As you get closer to the end eras, like the last final 3, your production is just going to get crazy. If you play wide. Play tall could just be cities are getting crazy, but it starts very small, and I love that it picks up after a while and gets crazy. The tech scale is immense. The whole depth of human knowledge, from the earliest discoveries like agriculture and pottery to advanced technologies like nuclear fusion and spaceflight. Each new technology unlocks new stuff, as I've said before. The building on it, as you go through the eras, just compiles and compiles more and more and gets grander and grander. Now it comes to my favorite section, historical accuracy. Civ 5 strikes a balance between historical accuracy and creative gameplay, using history as both a foundation and a source of inspiration, while allowing players to create their own alternate versions of history. Any alt history fans here? The game weaves historical elements into its mechanics, narratives, and aesthetics, but it does so with the flexibility needed to support a strategic, turn-based game that's fun and engaging. One of the most historically grounded aspects of Civ 5 is its selection of leaders and civilizations. Each civilization in the game game is led by a historical figure, such as Napoleon for France, Gandhi for India, oh god, getting flashbacks of Gandhi nuclearing my civ, or George Washington for the United States. These leaders are depicted with personalities and traits that reflect their historical reputations, influencing how they behave in the game. Sometimes the AI does not behave how these leaders did in the past, an example being Gandhi. It's a bit difficult, and sometimes you have to get mods in to get them to act how they historically did, but I mean, the civs play how they should, and they try to adapt to your play style, and I love that about the game. It's not super historically accurate, but how they play reflects their historical nature, like how the civilization actually was back in the day. It reflects it to a point, but like I said, either it be glitches in the game's code or something else, but every so often one character just goes bonkers when in real life they really wouldn't have. Or who knows, maybe Gandhi would have gone bonkers if he was given the full lead. Each civilization and leader comes with unique traits, abilities, and units that are inspired by their real-world counterparts. For example, the Mongols under Genghis Khan have bonuses related to cavalry and movement, reflecting the historical Mongol Empire's military prowess. The game makes an effort to represent each civilization's culture, architecture, and achievements. Wonders, buildings, and units often draw from the civilization's historical and cultural heritage, adding an educational layer to the game. You hear that, parents? That makes this game very educational if you want to teach your kids history. The tech tree that mirrors the progression of human knowledge throughout history is very prevalent in the game and very much teaches you something historical about it. Players research technologies from the Stone Age to the Information Age, unlocking new units, buildings, and abilities as they advance through different eras, and the tech tree is very historically structured, meaning that players must research earlier texts before advancing to more modern ones. This structure gives players a sense of how different inventions and discoveries built each other over time, and each time you unlock something, you'll get a quote, some thematic quote from a historical figure of the day when they talked about the technology. Adds a little nice historical spice into that, you know? So you're getting a little bit of extra stuff. And the game's eras from the ancient to information age correspond to significant periods in human history. As players progress through these eras, they experience the technological and cultural milestones that define each period. Just like, let's say you go to in the industrial age and you research gunpowder. That's a big boost, and you unlock a nice unit from it, and you get a nice little thematic quote from someone about gunpowder. So, you know, it adds more significance to it. At least for me, for a kid, it added a lot more intrigue into learning about these advancements in history and how it affected people. So it led me to read a lot about different technologies and different civilizations this game did, due to its high reliance on historical side of things, portraying history for us. And wonders are carefully chosen to represent the pinnacle of human achievement in various fields, such as architecture, science, art, and religion. Constructing a wonder gives players a connection to that historical moment and can significantly influence their civilization's development. And I'll give you a nice boost. While rooted in history, the gameplay effects of wonders are balanced for strategic purposes. Players must choose which wonders to build based on their strategic needs, making history a tool for achieving victory rather than a strict narrative. The game's policies and ideologies reflect major political, social, and economic philosophies from history. Players can adopt policies such as tradition, liberty, honor, and rationalism, which represent different approaches to governance and societal organization. The social policies and ideologies are inspired by real-world concepts. Democracy, communism, autocracy, they don't say fascism, but you know, that's pretty much what that is. These systems share the way a civilization develops and interacts with others, mirroring historical dynamics. Now, you have to have the Brave New World expansion to access ideologies, but they are a nice endgame way of continuously progressing your civilization's social policies. As you reach endgame, you'll probably max out most of your social policies you get through culture, but accessing ideologies allows you to get more bonuses on top of it. Personally, I lean towards democracy or autocracy. Communism doesn't really have that many bonuses for me that I feel are good. I mean, they have bonuses to help with population and all that, but in a gameplay perspective, not as powerful as the other two. Now, while these policies are historically grounded, players have the freedom to mix and match them in ways that might not have happened in real history. This flexibility allows for the creation of alternate histories where different ideologies or combinations of policies led to unique outcomes. Civ 5 includes specific scenarios that are based on historical events or periods, such as the fall of Rome or the colonization of the Americas. These scenarios provide a more focused and historically accurate experience, challenging players to navigate the complexities of these moments in history. Now, these scenarios, I've only played a few of them, but they're not that historically accurate because in the game, as soon as you start it, it can go off the rails with how things could happen. These scenarios offer players a chance to learn about history in a more structured and accurate way, though like I said, it's Civ 5, so it's not completely accurate compared to the more freeform gameplay of the main game. Diplomatic interactions in Civ 5 are influenced by historical relationships and power dynamics. The way leaders interact interact with each other is often informed by their historical counterparts, real-world behavior and alliances. Now, as I've said, the AI would like it to work like this, but it's not specifically like this. Sometimes to adapt to your strategy, they'll start behaving a lot more aggressive than they should, but their playstyle is how that civilization acted in its past, and I love that about it. Now, diplomatic relations are influenced by cultural and historical factors, such as shared borders, historical grievances, and religious differences. It adds depth to the diplomatic system, making interactions feel more grounded in history. Now, while history informs their interactions, the outcomes can vary greatly depending on your choices, as I've said. The game's balance between historical accuracy and strategic freedom is its biggest strong suit in this regard. It's how you get those crazy situations, where it doesn't make historical sense, but is very fun in game. Now, with it being deeply rooted in history, it's not a historical simulation. Instead, history serves as a narrative foundation upon which players can build their own stories. The game encourages players to experiment with different strategies, leading to alternate histories where different civilizations rise and fall based on player decisions. Players can take a historically accurate civilization and lead it down an entirely new path, exploring what-if scenarios that diverge from real history. This creative freedom outcomes are part of what makes the game engaging and replayable. It's probably one of the biggest reasons why I still play it to this day. Despite its flexible approach, the game still offers players an opportunity to learn about history. By interacting with historical leaders, technologies, and events, players gain a deeper understanding of the forces that have shaped human civilization, and for me being a history buff, this is one of the games that got me into being one. It's that good of a game that makes you appreciate your past. The multiplayer aspect of Civ 5 adds a new layer of strategy and competition, allowing players to face off against human opponents instead of AI-controlled civs. This mode enhances the game's complexity and unpredictability as human players bring their own tactics, creativity, and decision-making to the game. Civ 5 offers several multiplayer modes that cater to different playstyles and preferences. The standard multiplayer mirrors the single-player experience, where players compete to achieve one of the game's victory conditions while managing their civilizations. Players can form alliances, engage in diplomacy, or go to war just as they would in a solo game, but with the added challenge of outsmarting your human opponents. In co-op, players team up to work together against AI, just as you would expect. The hot seat mode, multiple players take turns playing on the same computer. After each turn, the next player takes over. This mode is ideal for groups of friends or family of two who want to play together in a shared space without requiring multiple computers or an internet connection. Hot seat was something that I thought was a bit odd, but it allows you to couch co-op. It's kind of how it feels, but the same civilization. So you play, you end your turn, and then you hop the seat to the other person. You can also play by email. This asynchronous mode allows players to take their turns at their own pace by sending save files back and forth via email. This mode is suitable for long, drawn-out games where players can't commit to playing at the same time, but still want to compete in a multiplayer setting. And it's very funny whenever you're playing with a friend and then you try to fuck up his save and you try to screw each other over with your civ. There are simultaneous turns in multiplayer. This system, where players take their turns at the same time, speeds up gameplay, reducing the wait time between turns and keeping the game flowing more smoothly compared to a traditional turn-based system. Each player performs their actions, such as moving units, managing cities, and conducting diplomacy during the same time period. Once all players have completed their actions, the turn ends, and the game processes the outcomes simultaneously. This system requires quick thinking and rapid decision-making, as players must anticipate their opponent's moves in real time. This is something that I was so glad to see happen in Warhammer 3, because it made sense. You have everyone there, and you're doing your turns at the same time, and then you end, and the AI does it. It just makes sense. For multiplayer, it makes it a lot more smoother, and I do appreciate that Civ 5 offers that for simultaneous turns. Now, there is a turn-based option if you just want to go regular. For those who prefer the more methodical approach, it just allows you to carefully plan everything for a more strategic approach if you want to go turn-based, but you can turn on simultaneous turns. I suggest it if you have the computer for it and the connection for it, because that's really what it comes down to. If your connection is shit, you're probably going to want to do just regular turn-based. So it's not like a deal breaker, to be honest, but it's up to you. It's up to you what you want to do with your friends. Diplomacy in multiplayer takes on a new dimension. Players must navigate the complexities of human interaction rather than relying on AI. So of course, diplomacy is not cut and dry. You can't just bribe your friend. I mean, you can, saying, hey, I'll give you this resource, but kind of can't do anything to swindle your friend because he's going to be already experienced with swindling the AI. Combat multiplayer is significantly more complex because you're more skilled and unpredictable than AI opponents. So it's not like you can accurately predict what they're going to do. You have to really more lean into your advanced tactics, such as feints, ambushes, coordinated strikes, making warfare more challenging. Players must carefully plan their military strategies, take into account the possibility of counterattacks and surprise maneuvers. Multiplayer combat also opens the door to psychological warfare, where players can use bluffing and deception to mislead their opponents. For example, a player might build up a large army near an opponent's border to intimidate them into submission, only to attack from a different direction. One of the biggest ways I've found to deal with combat in multiplayer is you really want to lean into spying and having intelligence. Spying is probably more important in multiplayer than it is in single player, so you want to try to have as much intel on your opponent as you can. When I play with my friends, I try to have spies in some of their cities that are bordering my cities, so I can know what units they're bringing, and then I can bring units that counter those units, because there's a counter system when it comes to military. It's very cut and dry. There's like not a lot of variance, and also if you play a civ that has an enhanced unit type, you might want to try to use that unit type, and also be mindful of your terrain. Like if you build a fort on a hill, that fort's going to be almost impregnable, but if you have like a valley that goes through, you're going to want to have a highly defensive unit in that valley to try to hold it. That's one thing about multiplayer for this game that is very subjective. You want to really play into the strengths and weaknesses of each unit, as well as I will continue to state, espionage is the key in multiplayer games. As soon as you unlock it, you'll want to keep an eye on your opponents, because unlike the AI, you can't just steamroll them with a whole bunch of units, a whole bunch of cheap units, especially when it comes to countering them with regular units. I mean, you're not going to have any bonuses or debuffs from fighting the AI, but if the unit is, for say, a cavalry unit and it tries to go up against a tank, it's going to die. So you want to try to keep up technology-wise with your opponent, and you'll want to keep up culturally and economically and militarily. Of course, it goes without saying. Now, players can customize many aspects of the game, such as map type, size, difficulty, starting era, and victory conditions for your custom playthroughs. So it allows a lot of leeway. You can add some challenges for yourselves, and it really adds some nice replayability to the multiplayer aspect. Now, the game supports mods, which can be used in multiplayer to introduce new civilizations, units, gameplay mechanics, or even entirely new scenarios. This flexibility keeps the multiplayer experience fresh and varied, as players can experience with different types of setups and challenges. Now, while multiplayer in Civilization 5 offers a rich, engaging experience, it also comes with its challenges. Like I said before, multiplayer games, especially those with many players, can sometimes suffer from connection issues, leading to lag or disconnections. However, the game allows for rejoining in progress games, mitigating some of these issues. When it comes to simultaneous turns, it has been notorious that I have always lost connections with some of my friends. My connection is not the best, but sometimes if a friend's connection is worse, it can completely nuke the game. So you'll want to try to mitigate that as much as you can. Now, another big problem is the length of multiplayer games. It's a big time commitment. It can be a barrier for some players, as committing to a full game could take several hours. This can be mitigated by playing shorter sessions or opting for faster game speeds, but a lot of them, myself included, love to play the drawn out game and just keep coming back to it. It just will take several hours, maybe days to play. But all in all, multiplayer in this game is still solid. Even to this day, I still prefer it over Civ 6. Even though Civ 6 improved a lot of the multiplayer aspects, I enjoy it because it's more realistic, more grounded. I just love playing it with my buddies whenever we want to have a nice drawn out campaign and maybe see if we can out empire each other. Now, as I've said before, the replayability of Civilization 5 is one of its most celebrated features, driven by a combination of its complex systems, diverse content, and the freedom it offers players to create unique experiences in each game. Civ 5 offers a wide range of civilizations, each with its own unique leader, abilities, units, and buildings. It just ensures that no two exact playthroughs are going to be the same, as each civilization brings different strengths and playstyles to the table, such as the Germans have a very industrial society, whereas the Assyrians are very militarized. So you have different types of gameplay. Even the ones that are similar, like the Assyrians and the Mongols, have different playstyles in their militaristic style. So each one deserves to be played at least once, and I would argue to play them all the way through, which adds a lot more time and replayability to it. And then of course the scenarios, the multiplayer, all of that builds into it. And each one has unique abilities, such as Japan might encourage a focus on military conquest due to Bushido, as well as they have a heightened cultural impact, while playing as India might lead to a more peaceful approach because of their population growth bonuses and the improvements for happiness with increased population. The game's many leaders, each with distinct agendas and personalities, contribute to different diplomatic landscape in every game. This variety ensures that even if you play the same civilization multiple times, the experience could vary greatly depending on your opponents. Now again, like I've said, the AI sometimes can fuck up and it will make Gandhi war hungry where he should be peaceful, or make Genghis Khan peaceful when he should be war hungry. And you can also change this in a setting. I believe there's one that has alternate or like ahistorical personalities, so basically they can just have a random personality. Now another big thing thing for replayability is the random map types. The generated map is something that has been around in gaming for a while, but I like that Civ 5 has the different types that you can randomly generate. I usually go for larger islands. I'm the type of guy that likes to completely surround and control an island and then go from there, one island to another, kind of like continents. But they give you a nice fresh amount of landscape and all the different types that comes from continents, Pangea, Archipelago, and more. They provide different approaches. For example, an Archipelago map focuses on naval power. Pangea pretty much makes it to where it's just land because it's all one big area. The random distribution of resources from the strategic to luxury and bonus resources further increases your replayability, as you might find yourself in a resource-rich area one game and struggling with scarce resources in the next, forcing you to adapt your strategy accordingly. And this builds on each of the civilization's strengths and weaknesses. Some of them have bonuses for certain tile types and for certain luxury resources. So if you roll a game where you have no access to them, then you're going to struggle. But if you roll a game where you have abundance, you're going to be very, very powerful. There are multiple victory conditions, as I've said before. I mean, each one gives you a different playstyle to get to that victory condition. So of course, that multiplies a vast amount of civilizations by 5 for each of the victory conditions you want to achieve. So already, that's really good. There is some strategic flexibility. Players can aim for different types of victories depending on the situation. For example, you might pursue a science victory by focusing on resource and technology in one game, and then try for a cultural victory by developing tourism and cultural influence in another. Hey Meeper. Depending on what civilization you pick, depends on how easy or difficult this will be. So it's a big challenge to choose a militaristic society and then maybe try to do like a cultural or economic victory with them. It is very adaptive to that. And then of course, like I've said, the AI opponents in Civ 5 are designed to react to your actions, making diplomacy and strategy dynamic and unpredictable. The varying behavior of AI leaders ensures that no two games unfold in the same way. And like I've said many times in this video, they can get kind of retarded. Don't be discouraged if Gandhi hates you randomly. It's just the AI adapting to you. So if you're peaceful, Gandhi might want to kill you. But if you're war hungry, he might try to make peace with you. Who knows? It's the civilization AI after all. Try different religions out, try different civs out. It's very varied in what can happen in a game. And that's why I just find myself playing it over and over and over again to see what can happen. It's amazing how many ways you can play this game over and over again, and it will still surprise you. Now, Civ 5 has a robust modding community that has created countless mods, scenarios, and custom content, significantly expanding the game's replayability, such as the Shrek mod, one of my goats. Mods can introduce new civilizations, leaders, units, technologies, and even entirely new gameplay mechanics. This customization allows players to tailor the game to their preferences and explore entirely new challenges that weren't present in the base game. Players can create or download custom scenarios that focus on specific historical events, fictional settings, or unique challenges. These scenarios can range from simple changes to the starting conditions to complete overhauls of the game mechanics. The game includes a variety of pre-made scenarios that offer focused, historically inspired challenges, and these scenarios provide specific objectives and rules, offering a different experience from the standard game. Now, scenarios often have unique rules, victory conditions, and time frames that differ from the main game. For example, a scenario might focus on the American Civil War, requiring players to engage in strategic warfare over a limited number of turns. Even within a single scenario, different starting positions, strategies, and player choices can lead to a variety of outcomes, making these scenarios worth replaying. So many things can be modified in this game, and I just want to shout out a couple of my favorite mods in this section. The Red mod pack, one of the goats. Any of the high quality civilization mods that add, like Vietnam was one of them that I saw was pretty good. I always am exploring the Steam page for new and interesting civs to play, new buildings to add on, like one that adds a pontoon bridge, one that adds TPs, one that adds Mont Bailey forts. All of these different improvements or buildings that you can add that give you increased production or more gold, or new units like the XCOM squads or Navy SEALs was one unit that was pretty cool. There's a lot of different mod packs that are really good, but I always check the Steam page constantly because there's always new stuff being added to this game, and it heightens its replayability more. The mod packs themselves, whether they're scenarios or just new civs, even the Shrek one, which is honestly one of the goats, it all adds a new way of playing the game and just allows you to immerse yourself into the game or even into a fictional setting, because there's like whole rosters of Warhammer civs, there's Avatar The Last Airbender civs, there's fantasy civs, Game of Thrones civs, there's civs from all over. People make these mods and they make them very detailed. Some of them are not as much, they just add like a new civ, but some of them have a civ, new unit, new building, new scenario. It's very detailed when it comes to modding, and I feel that is one of the game's biggest strong suits, and it will make sure that it never dies. In conclusion, Civ 5 stands as a monumental achievement in the strategy gaming genre. With its deep and engaging gameplay, diverse civilizations, and endless strategic possibilities, it's a game that both veterans and newcomers can enjoy for countless hours. The game's polished mechanics, beautiful art style, and rich modding support contribute to a truly immersive experience that keeps players coming back for more. While no game is without its flaws, Civ 5 comes incredibly close to perfection. Its robust AI, compelling diplomacy, and varied victory conditions create a dynamic world where every decision feels impactful. The only minor drawbacks are the occasional pacing issues in late game stages and the need for all expansions to fully experience the game's potential. However, those are small critiques in an otherwise outstanding title. For those reasons, I'm giving Civ 5 a solid 9.5 out of 10 command posts. It's a must-play for any strategy fan and a shining example of what a great strategy game should be. Thanks for watching, and if you haven't yet, be sure to dive into this timeless classic and start building your own empire today. Now, Meeper, say goodbye to the lovely viewers with me. Remember, as always, Strat fans, to keep it strategic, going all out.